Number 6. Myth mashups and copy-paste culture. Here's a fun thing about early mapmakers. Originality was not the vibe. Back in the medieval and Renaissance periods, maps were less about first-hand exploration and more about remixing whatever your predecessors scribbled down. Even if those predecessors were basically guessing with a quill. If one old map said, "There's a two-headed fish beast here," guess what? The next 5 maps included that same fish beast, sometimes with extra heads, just for flair. This copy-paste culture wasn't laziness, it was how information survived. Think of it like medieval Wikipedia, but with more sea serpents and fewer fact-checkers. Cartographers weren't traveling the world themselves. Most hadn't even left their own towns, so they cobbled together reports from sailors, merchants, monks, and that one guy who swears he saw a unicorn near Iceland. And these monsters weren't always just monsters. Sometimes they were mashups of real animals with a dash of imagination. You'd get lion-fish hybrids, tusked mer dogs, and giant lobsters with wings, all lovingly plagiarized from the last dozen maps. This led to some truly unhinged geographical art galleries, where the only limit was how much ink the guy had left. And once a creature made it onto a famous map, it might as well have been canon. Even if it was literally a manatee drawn by someone who'd never seen a manatee and thought it looked like a bearded human with fins and dad-bod energy. Basically, ancient maps were the original meme templates, reused, remixed, and wildly unreliable. Number 5. Political warnings in monster form. Let's talk politics. Because yes, even sea monsters weren't safe from geopolitical spin. Imagine you're a cartographer in Venice, and your city-state is beefing with some weird island kingdom full of trade rivals. Are you going to leave their waters looking peaceful and inviting on your new map? Heck no. You're going to draw a fire-breathing eel dragon doing cartwheels near their coast. Boom. Instant reputation sabotage. Maps weren't neutral documents. They were tools of influence, and sometimes propaganda. If your map showed terrifying creatures near someone else's territory, it could scare off travelers, traders, or invaders. Or at the very least, cast doubt on the area's safety or spiritual purity. Oh, you're sailing to the Isle of Grumblehorn. Hope you brought your holy water and monster repellent. Some kingdoms even leaned into it, encouraging tales of monstrous local wildlife to keep colonizers or pirates at bay. Sort of a medieval version of Keep Out. Dangerous dog inside, except the dog is a 30-foot sea snake that breathes bubbles of death. So yes, some monsters were drawn out of fear or ignorance, but others were drawn out of strategy. Cartographic psychological warfare. You've heard of war maps. Well, these were passive-aggressive ocean maps. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. It means a lot to me. Number 4. The influence of bestiaries. Okay, buckle up because things are about to get educationally absurd. Before National Geographic, before biology textbooks, before the scientific method even thought about existing, people got their animal facts from bestiaries. These were medieval illustrated books that combined equal parts natural history, church sermon, and fan fiction. And they were wild. A bestiary might describe a real animal like a lion, but it would also include facts. Like the lion erases its tracks with its tail, is scared of roosters, and sometimes cries like a baby to lure prey. You know, totally normal behavior. Now imagine using that as your reference when drawing sea life. When it came to ocean creatures, bestiaries leaned hard into the bizarre. Fish that gave birth through their mouths. Sea dogs that barked underwater. Mermaids who dragged sailors down because lust. Jealousy, plot holes. Cartographers took this information seriously, because it was all they had. You might not have ever seen the sea, but you had seen that one monk's drawing of a fish with a human face. So you plopped that baby right onto your map, somewhere near the "here be confusion" zone. It wasn't just about entertainment either. Bestiaries were spiritual. Every animal, real or imaginary, had a moral lesson. A sea monster might symbolize greed, pride, temptation, or that thing where you eat too much pickled herring and hallucinate a water demon. So when maps started including sea monsters, they weren't just copying nature, they were copying morality. Every tentacle and tooth was basically a sermon. A very damp, angry sermon. In summary, your medieval map was the final boss of folklore, religious guilt, and bad zoology. Number 3. The trauma of actual encounters. Let's get serious-ish for a moment. You know how people today get freaked out by deep sea creatures like gulper eels or anglerfish. Imagine seeing one of those without any context. No Discovery Channel, no scientists. Just teeth, slime, and suffering. That's what happened to ancient sailors. They encountered real deep sea animals that looked nothing like the fish they were used to. Think massive squid tentacles tangled in the rigging, sharks longer than your boat, weird jellyfish with bioluminescent frills in the eyes of your nightmares. When something terrifying pops out of the ocean and then vanishes just as quickly, your brain goes, well, that must have been a sea demon, obviously. And then you tell people. Loudly. With embellishments. Possibly while drinking. Those stories made their way to mapmakers, especially the ones with no first-hand experience. A malformed whale becomes a sea serpent. A giant oarfish becomes a winged eel with opinions. A Portuguese man-o'-war becomes the floating soul of a drowned sorcerer. And let's be honest, trauma isn't known for its accuracy. If your buddy Dave got eaten by something big and shiny, your version of the story is going to involve way more fangs, thunder, and possibly cursed winds. So yes, real animals did help inspire these legends. But trauma gave those animals claws, fangs, and the ability to scream your name in Latin. Number 2. The Kraken was kinda real. Alright, let's talk about the big one, the OG sea monster, the Beyoncé of brunny horror. The Kraken. The Kraken is often described as a squid the size of a small island, capable of dragging entire ships under with its horrifying, inky jazz hands. Sounds like pure fantasy, right? A seafood-themed fairy tale. Not so fast. Turns out the Kraken myth might have had a legitimate origin, the giant squid. Yes, an actual real-life creature that can grow over 40 feet long, has dinner plate-sized eyes and tentacles strong enough to scar whales. As in animals the size of a school bus. The fact that it exists at all feels like someone lost a bet with nature. These creatures live deep in the ocean and are almost never seen alive. But occasionally, they wash ashore or get caught in fishing nets. When they do, people understandably freak out. Giant squids are the deep sea equivalent of walking into your basement and finding a writhing alien with suckers. In the past, sailors sometimes found enormous tentacles floating near the surface or tangled in wreckage. No one knew what they were, just that they were long, slimy, and very much not okay. So the legend of the Kraken grew, a colossal sea beast with a vendetta against ships and a flair for drama. And the best part, early naturalists didn't dismiss it. Carl Linnaeus, the guy who basically invented scientific naming, included the Kraken in one of his early classifications. That's right. For a hot second, the Kraken was science. So next time you hear someone scoff at sea monster myths, remind them that the Kraken might have been real. It just had a branding problem. Number 1. Sea monsters were just the edge. We've reached the end of the map. Literally, you've probably heard the phrase, "Here be dragons." It's often imagined scrawled in the corner of a tattered map, just past where the world turns spooky. And while that exact phrase doesn't show up as often as we think, the sentiment, it was everywhere. Ancient and medieval maps had clear psychological edges. Once you ran out of known lands or charted coasts, the logical thing to do apparently was fill the space with fear. Not just because of ignorance, but because the unknown was terrifying. Think about it. Before satellites and sonar, the sea was the largest, most mysterious place on Earth. It ate ships. It birthed storms. It separated entire continents. It was where people went to vanish. That kind of power needs a visual. And what better way to represent raw chaos than a giant, glowing snake, fish hybrid with the voice of thunder. In a way, sea monsters were the emotional punctuation at the end of knowledge. The exclamation mark on a map that screamed, don't, no. They made the ocean feel like a character. Not just a place, but a dangerous, hungry force with moods and metaphors. So no, sea monsters weren't always believed to be real in a literal sense. But they were true in a psychological sense. They captured our awe, our fear, our helplessness, and our desperate need to draw something at the end of the line. In the end, sea monsters weren't just decorations. They were confessions. Of ignorance. Of wonder. Of what happens when humans stare too long into the abyss and start doodling. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.